Okay, so I've decided to go ahead and continue this procedure a little bit because I wanted to see if I can illustrate the moves that I make when I'm doing this rechambering thing. And understand, this is not hack work. The reason I do my own stuff is because I could not pay anyone in this nation enough money to get chambers to match the way I want them to. I want chambers to match so well that I can shoot a case 20, 30 times, break the gun, take that same case, poke out the primer, pour some powder in, and bring it over to another gun and just put it in and continue using it as though nothing changed. I want my PPC, my BR, my 47, all the way up to 50 Bmg chambers. If I have 7 chambers, I want them to be identical. I don't want to carry die shims. I don't know how to stress that enough. And the only way to get that is to do this by hand. And because it takes scrupulous, crazy scrupulous fit for this to work, that in itself proves the method. Me over here hacking away on this thing might look like it's cheap garbage and something that you'd never want to involve yourself in. But I'm doing it for 2 reasons. Number one, so that people will involve themselves in it. And number 2, to stress the fact that this ain't hacking. Using this method, I can make 5 chambers that will accept brass back and forth between them and not wear them out. I don't even have to, I can be out in a situation where, and I'm not talking loose brass, I'm talking super tight, fire at 50 times brass that acts exactly the same over and over. So as I'm doing this, I realize that my moves are enough more apparent on that big case that you might be able to see it. What I do when I'm turning this, first of all, you put it in and it pretty much just freewheels. And let me say right here, when it comes to reamers, never turn one backwards. That's just rule number 1. Might be a stupid rule, might be an Al rule, might be that I'm out to lunch, but I say never turn one backwards. So you drop it in gently, you get it rotating under its own weight, and it's not hooking up, it's not doing anything now. Now you come into it, and you get a good grip, you get your alignment. It's self-centering because it's a reamer. This is the only one I've ever done without a bushing. I normally do use a bushing in the help of that. It gives even more alignment, but I'm thinking this big pig, I'm testing here. I'm going to do it without even having a bushing down in the barrel. So the move is, though, you get it, right now it's in there and it's not hooked up, it's not bitten into the metal at all. It will just, I can spin it with my fingers. This size is, yeah, I can spin it with my fingers. And then I can feel for every little imperfection. But now when I start to cut, first of all, I have dew drill on there. This is important. You must have a cutting oil. Never cut dry in this case. It needs that lubrication. So I've got it in there spinning. Now as I start to come around, I get it moving with no pressure and then I bear down on it. I put some weight into it and I let it dig and then I let it come back out. In my mind, I'm taking out a scoop. I'm really not. I'm cutting down and then easing off. It's just sinking and easing off, sinking and easing off. But in my brain, I scoop it like ice cream. I come in and I scoop back out and I leave both ends trailing out perfectly. So I come around and I want it to come out and leave. There's no glitches in there. There's no, and on this big a chamber, and because I trust my alignments well enough and I have a bush down here that actually fits pretty good, I can take 2 hands and I can get, again, this is like the tool placement thing I've done in some of my videos. You must learn how to support yourself and handle, whether you're sharpening a chainsaw or whether you're carving aluminum, a couple of the things we've covered recently. Learn how to support yourself with hand tools. Here, the key is, get your clothes back out of the way. I buttoned my shirt, even though it's not cold in here. But the thing is, as I work out on the lathe, I have my gear on, and I come in and I'm all warm on the front. So I got out for a minute, and now I'm getting ready to go back out and do some more chambering. None of that matters to you. But I did notice that right here, it's automatic when you're in tools. Get your clothes out of the way. I don't even go to the lathe without having my clothes sucked back and my sleeves cut down. Everything must be clear of the moving parts. In this case, I just don't want to get my fat belly up there and suck myself into this thing. So, again, as I'm standing here, this thing is still loose. Now, I can take two hands and I can bear it. Now, when I say bear it down, I might make a big grimace out of the deal. But I'm bearing down with, I don't know, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever I can feel cutting. And I have to be careful. This is where the video might get boring. You might want to turn it off. But I'm going to do that same thing again. I'm going to show you, I haven't even looked at these yet, what's cutting and how it's cutting. See that? I've cut a bunch. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and set this thing aside. And I'm going to do a quick cleanup here. And I'm going to show you the fitment at the same time. Here, I take a shotgun brush, put it on here. I go in after the big stuff. Just want to make sure that there's no flex hung up in that chamber that'll screw with my head spacing. This is sitting like this. On the lathe I actually reach in and I do a bunch of other stuff. This now just goes in the trash. And I take out, this doesn't look clean to you, but I've been using it for something else. And it's just got grease and oil on it. It's never really touched the ground. This one goes in again and I check for the last time for anything that could hang up and mess with my headspace. Got that covered. So this goes out of the way. Now we take I've got two different things I'm headspacing. I'm headspacing on virgin Hornady brass and on this revamped, ready to go. This one's actually been primed and everything. And it's been in and out of the, you might be able to see a ring on the primer. It's been in and out of here a couple of times. Because this takes a minute. I like to ease that down until I get exactly the fit that I want. Because what I'm doing with this chamber, with this whole setup, with everything, I'm designing my chamber right now. This is my methodology. I've recut this chamber twice. Actually, I put 3 fingers up because in a sense I've recut it 3 times. The first time, I'm going to see if the cartridge is here. This is kind of interesting. The first time, I think this might be it. Anyway, the first time I set my angle so that it popped out. I only recut and fattened the back corner. I actually made it rocket ship shaped. Instead of trying to run all the way in, I was too lazy to run the numbers, so I just set it so it would bite here, got my 15 or so thousandths, and then pop out about right here, which means my chamber ended up shaped like this. It had a nice chamber, and I took it, whacked that out at the back. I might have a picture here because I drew up my numbers. This was a few days ago. But again, if you're not bored by now, this is not going to bore you. So, there it is. There's a picture of the rear of the chamber I'm talking about. Not a picture, an image, a drawing. This right here is basically what I touched down at 0 and I pulled it toward my belly 18 thou. And I cut that little flare at the back of the chamber and I took it out and I fired that mother. And everything worked fine. It just looked goofy. It made it look like a rocket ship. None of these things I've been meaning to do for a while, and I finally did. So it worked so well that I decided, well, now I'm going to adjust my angles and I'm going to set it up so that that cut tails out right up here, which I did. And so now I have what seems to me to be, I'm honing in on the perfect chamber, the perfect length, the perfect, I haven't played with lead angles and stuff yet, but at this point I ran out of parallel just far enough that the cut started right here and it's like 20 thou here and it's zeroed out right here to nothing. In fact, that's one of the reasons I held this reamer up. You can see that it's actually cutting. Right now the chamber in the back is over 20,000th oversize. It's cutting and it's feeding. So what this tells me is I did not screw up and tail out too wide at the front. This will still fit, sizing die fits, everything fits. It's actually cutting up into the body just a little bit. From about here on, the body's just floating. Because from about here on, the chamber's completely out of the way. But as I work this thing, now let's find out where we're at here. This was utter refusal when I started. This is my balancing act. I head spaced on brand new Hornady cases, and I did it on 10 of them, and I checked them. I haven't reset them or anything. They're consistent enough. I head spaced them. They worked fine. Then I started going over and I said, okay, I got 500 or 600 cases of this crap military reclaim stuff because we're still in the middle of Biden's presidency, so all the supply lines are screwed up because of the stupid people. And it's going to be 4 or 5 years before this mess. I've done this so many times. I bought guns back before Billy Clinton, who was one of the filthiest human beings on this planet. And he banned all sorts of things. I had magazines that I paid $9.99 for that I could have sold for $299. And I didn't because I didn't. There's no ethical reason not to. I know enough about these gun markets. I should just start buying cheap and selling high. Right now, let's just not go there. The point is I ordered a bunch of this Israeli brass. It's all written in Cyrillic or something. That would make it Russian. I don't know what it is. Reclaimed stuff, and I'm going to go ahead and use it. Because it's really, really hard to buy new stuff. I normally just use new brass. But I'm trying to make this universal enough that anybody can go out and spec out and put together a 50 Bmg and make it useful, make it better than anything out there. So this is one of those pieces of military brass that I've run through, and I want it to headspace. It'll headspace more tightly on this than it does on this. If this brass is thick enough, I think I can get by with just a few pounds of closing pressure and still get that stuff to lock up and make straight cases. This is based on years of doing this, years of experience. I chamber so that I get a tight fit right in this area here, enough lockup that when that 28 pounds hits it, it doesn't move it off the bolt face. If it moves it off the bolt face, then the cartridge case can do nothing but stretch back to fix itself, and that banana's the case. This is stuff we've talked about. So I think I have enough resistance up here because there's a lot of meat. That's the biggest reason I was worried about blowing that other gun up. You know, 55,000 PSI in a PPC case or in a 308 case is a whole different thing than 55,000 PSI in this big boy, because it's a lot more PSs, a lot more SIs to work on, a lot more square inches. By the same token, the resistance when I run up against this ring, you know, this has got twice as much resistance because it's got twice as much area. Simple matter of area. So, oops, putting these back. Okay, sorry. As I said, I'll edit it out someday. I'm a lying sack. That'll never happen. So we're going to try this. Redneck chambering on the farm. No equipment necessary. What is happening here? Did I leave something in there? Aha! There's a fleck of paper towel. This thing pulled off. I should just blow it out. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna see if it goes. I'm not gonna blow it out yet. I'm skipping some steps here because I just got a wild hair and decided, okay, I'm gonna throw this on the video. Drop. Blue. Still a tight chamber. And that's fired brass. No, that's, forget what I just said. That's not, this brass has not been fired in this gun. But it closed with maybe 5 pounds of pressure. This Hornady should go in with about half that pressure. But it should still leave enough of a resistance ring in there to fire form properly. And I know that most of you aren't going to know what I mean by a resistance ring. It's that thing I just showed you. It's the fact that that cartridge is only touching on a little ring-shaped area way at the front. Until you blow it out and get it all to fit, It's only head spacing on a little ring. So here we are with the Hornady case. Oh yeah, boom. I would say I am done. You know, that's almost art when I get up on camera and run this thing in for the first time and hit it that close, I have to say. I didn't suck on that one. So, that was all I wanted to... Oh, there's one other thing here. I've got some primers out. I was just... For all of you that have never really seen this, I've built a lot of guns and I've fired a lot of BMGs and I've fired a lot of this and that, but until I started hand loading this stuff, there's a lot that I didn't really realize. One of the things I didn't really realize is just how bloody massive a 50 Bmg primer is. I have here in my sweaty little palm various primers from small rifle, which I use the most of. These green ones right here are small rifle primers over on this side. This is what I use in my BRs, my 47 cases, my Palma cases. I use these little rifle primer. Primarily my match grade stuff uses these little match rifle primers. Then in the middle we go to the large rifle primer. So over here we have the small rifle primer. Over here we have the large rifle primer, and as you can see if you've been paying attention, the Bmg primer is kind of in its own realm. It doesn't even... I posted a while back on the internet, has anybody made any bushings? Because I couldn't get these primers. I paid $1 a piece for these suckers. I mean, that's sick. $1 a primer. But I wanted to do all this stuff so I could share it with y'alls, which is what I'm doing right now. And yeah, these are big dogs. That's a big primer. There are people on super low pressure loads like subsonic 50s of this and that sort, or shotguns. There's a lot you can do with low pressure shotgun style loads in the 50 Bmg case that's really kind of fun. So some of those are using 209 primers and they're making a little bushing assembly that'll fit in this Bmg primer pocket hole, and I'll take a Federal Tour, a 209 size shot shell primer. I can't do that. I'm running these pressures up. I want to run these pressures up to BR velocities. I want to crank this sucker. I'm going to pretend that this, once I've got the safety issues worked out, I'm not going to either blow a brake off or break a stock or stick a scope through my eye or blow up a barrel. Then I'm going to start going after this thing like needs to be gone after and turning it into a BR cartridge. And to do that, I got to run it up hot. It's got to go hot because the heat is where it's at. So anyway, add-on video just to kind of show you how I work this when I'm recutting a chamber deeper. There is a thing on the inner tube and elsewhere where you can order something called short-chambered guns. And if you know how to do this stuff, you can order a short-chambered Krieger or Bartlein or Schillen or name brand Douglas barrel, bring it home, and if you own your own reamer, you can top out the chamber yourself. And I'm telling you, it's not hard. Find a way to clamp it, follow the moves I just did, and I just reset the headspace on a 50 Bmg to a higher tolerance, to a higher standard than you could have done on a big multi-million-dollar lathe machine that some fancy guys got, some CNC setup. So that said, this does good work, and I have the option of taking 3 or 4 different guns, 3 or 4 different chambers, and comparing load to load. And not only that, interchanging. As I've said before, I don't really believe in measuring. My thing is all about gauging. And when you're gauging cartridges from chamber to chamber to chamber, it's no different than using pin gauges to establish a delicate relationship on a tubular hole, a reamed hole of some sort. You can't measure, so instead you gauge. being able to gauge these cartridges one against the other gives me the ability to absolutely ascertain that the work I am doing is of top quality. When I'm done with these, which is, I'm well on the road. I've got 3 out of 4 of these. 2 of them are up and, as I said in the other video, functionable. I've been firing. When it's all said and done, I'm going to have 4 of these guys, and they're going to swap and interchange brass as though they were twin sisters. I don't want to have one different than the other. I want all identical chambers. Now, whether I can do that by hand cutting the chambers 18 thousandths bigger at a custom taper, we're going to find out. Let's just say I'm a cocky POS and I say, yeah, I can do it. So, enough of that. Don't need to listen to my silly attitude. So, as I said on the last one, enjoy the day. Here's a little throw-in just to show you the moves.